Hi there, welcome to another St. Mary's Google Hangout. This time I am joined by Liz Nunan, class of '03. She is now the Director of Content and Creative for Gap Inc. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting.
So I guess first off, just kind of talk about the the new role that you do have, as you kind of talked about of us be of just kind of talk about that new role you have and that the adjustment that you've had.
Yeah, so I've been working for Gap Inc. Here in San Francisco for about 5 years. And up until recently, I worked on our corporate communications team. So, what that means is that my team was responsible for telling the business stories on behalf of the company. So, not only on behalf of Inc. with our financial stories and our earnings stories and financials, but also working across our brand of portfolio, a portfolio of brands to make sure that business media and consumers knew the latest business updates from all of our brands. So Gap Inc. owns Gap, Banana Republic, Old Navy, Athleta, and Intermix. So for the past 5 years, I've been working with media to really make sure our stories come to life and that investors and customers know the latest from all of those brands in our company. So I recently just started a new role. As you mentioned, I'm head of content and creative for Gap Inc., which means that I'm responsible for setting the strategy for our corporate website, gapinc.com, our intranet, which is called Gap Web, and then navigating what our strategy is across all of our social channels. So Gap Inc.'s Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also our corporate blog called Addressed. So in terms of how it's different, I'm still telling stories externally and internally on behalf of the company, but in a different way. So using our earned channels, our owned channels, to make sure that we're bringing stories to light to all those same audiences and new audiences.
Kind of talk about that transition that there has been of organizations being able to tell their own story as opposed to using kind of the traditional outlets or whatnot, and how that has changed the strategy of what you do.
Yeah, well, I'm just learning. I'm only 2 weeks into this new job. But yeah, I'm just going to be thinking in a new way. So, in the past, I was working closely with our executives and brands and media like New York Times and Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal, and bridging the gap between our company and the media to tell those stories. So now telling those stories on on our owned channels, it's just thinking in different ways. So before I was really thinking with like, is this newsy? Is this something that investors will care about? And I'm definitely thinking with those same filters in mind, but a lot more visually. So how can we capture photos of our brands and our processes and bring them to life in really engaging ways that customers and investors would really be interested in?
And now, when you were working on a little bit more on the PR side and working with media outlets, how did you kind of evaluate which ones to reach out to? What was some of the criteria that you used to kind of to reach out to which brand, and like did it depend on which Gap brand you were trying to promote?
So, when you're working with business media and top tier media, typically the way that the outlet is manages their editorial staff is there are specific reporters who are assigned to cover your company. So, at New York Times, for example, there's a reporter who's dedicated to telling retail stories and is an expert on Gap Inc. So as we're evaluating telling our stories across different outlets, we think about what the audience, who the audience is, what kind of stories that outlet likes to tell. If it's mostly financial driven or statistics driven, we might go to a Wall Street Journal. Or if it is more of a consumer focus or more of a marketing focus, we might go to like a New York Times ads section or something like that. So it really just depends on what story you're trying to tell and what outlet is the best fit for that story.
Now, you started out as a business major here at St. Mary's and then switched to English. Just kind of talk about that, the way
Yeah.
that you took to get from business to English and then into the PR realm and how you've gotten to this point and then also in what ways, like what interested you about the job.
Yeah. So I started as a business major at St. Mary's, and I took all the classes you take during your freshman year to start on that journey. So I was taking accounting and statistics, and I really didn't have my heart in my studies, and I was struggling a little bit, but I really loved seminar classes. I loved reading, and I loved writing and analyzing what we discussed during those classes. So at the end of my freshman year, I took a hard look at, what I wanted to do with my life and talked to my parents and talked to my advisors at the college. And I decided that I wanted to switch my major to English because I loved writing and I loved reading, and both of my parents were English majors. So I was like, well, they did it. That's probably a great route. So I changed my major my sophomore year, and I absolutely loved my English courses. And I'm so happy that I made that decision. Some of my best memories from St. Mary's were my creative writing classes with Rosemary Graham and my classes on medieval literature with Lisa Manter. Like, those really shaped, what I thought I could do with my English major. And I was so excited to apply, my love of writing in my studies and everything. So really, really happy to change my major, and I loved my courses. So following graduation, I knew I wanted to stick with writing, but I wasn't quite sure how to apply what I'd learned in the real world. So I started working for a media monitoring company in the Bay Area, and I actually got that job through the St. Mary's Career Center. And what I was doing was working with PR firms, actually, to help them capture mentions of their clients. So if the PR firm's client was Gap, I would help them monitor for any TV segments or online segments about Gap, and then I would send it to them. So to help me do my job, they were sending me their press releases and their ideas for newsmaking opportunities. And I was like, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be on the PR side. I want to be part of the team that creates the stories and has the creative license to think of these ideas to get their clients on the news. So I became an intern at Fleischman Hillard, which is a PR, like a very well-known PR agency. It's a global agency. It's a wonderful agency. And I was the oldest intern. Everyone else was in college, but I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to start over. And it was a really, really great decision. I learned so much about PR and how to work with the media, and I got to use my writing every single day. I was writing press releases. I was writing pitches to media. I was doing analytical writing of what I was seeing in the media. And that's really where my career in PR started, and I've been doing it ever since.
Now, you talked about like what you've been doing the last couple of weeks in that transition, and you had mentioned to me that some of that was observing what was going on during Fashion Week, being that this was the first time in a couple of years that you had actually missed being there in person. So what had you noticed as far as like being the most effective content, or what were some of the what were some things that stood out to you in your observation? What was going on digitally surrounding the week?
Yeah, so Fashion Week is quite an interesting thing to observe right now. There's lots of things going on in the retail industry. So if you have been following, the traditional cadence for Fashion Week was brands would show their collections for forward coming seasons way in advance. So at the September Fashion Week we just had, we were showing spring of next year. But consumers are in the mindset when they want things now. They want things now. So there's this new trend in Fashion Week where it's called see now, buy now. And a lot of brands are kind of flipping that timing on its head, where they will show collections for the first time at Fashion Week, and then consumers can buy them right then and there. And Banana Republic was actually one of the first brands to ever do this. And this is the second season that we've actually seen that happening. So to watch on social media and in traditional media, it's been fascinating to see how brands are being nimble and changing the way that they run their business, and to meet the demands of the consumer who wants to get those new looks and the new trends right away. So that was a really interesting element to observe and write about. And also just to see how people are so engaged on social media now. And Fashion Week used to be something that was very exclusive, but now it's really democratic, and bloggers and reporters and brands are sharing their behind the scenes and their runway shows right from their Snapchats or their Instagrams, their Facebook Live. So everyone can participate, which is a really cool and new way to approach fashion. So.
How has that kind of changed the outlook of how brands do approach that, and how quickly are brands able to kind of implement some of those ideas?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, the Gap Inc. portfolio of brands, only Banana Republic participates. So I can say that from our perspective, it was really important to jump in on the trend right away. And it's been interesting to see how other brands are participating too. I mean, I think really the opportunity is being able to identify a trend and then jump in on it right away, which is something that one of our brands was able to do, which is super exciting.
What have been some of the more important lessons that you've kind of learned in the fashion industry or in PR in general that has made you a little bit more successful in what you do?
Yeah. Well, in terms of PR, I think one of the most important lessons to learn is relationship building. Really, you're only as successful as the story you pitch and that you work on comes to life. And you can't tell a successful story unless you have the trust of the reporter that you're working with and the trust of the executive that the reporter will be interviewing. It's really a two-way street, and unless there's that mutual trust, it's really hard to be successful. So I think if you're interested in getting into PR, one thing to really pay attention to is the reporters that you want to work with. Follow them on social media, read their regular stories, just really keep up on what they're interested in, because when you have a story to tell and you know it will be of interest to them, they appreciate that. So, you know, if I wanted to work with New York Times on a story, I could say, I saw that you've been really interested in this topic, and I have a great idea for a story for you. And it makes them know that I appreciate their writing, I'm following them, and that I want to help them tell the best stories possible. And executives appreciate that too. They want to know how the reporter likes to interview executives, you know, what their style is, how do we approach the interview in a way that's most engaging and compelling for the reporter. So I think relationship building is huge. Also, I think writing is a really important skill that you need for any kind of communications job, whether it be in public relations or internal communications, because you know, it's really an art to get your story across in a concise and clear way, whether it be on a press release or a tweet. So writing is a really, really important thing to emphasize. Is that your question? I forgot already.
Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much got to the point. So one of the things I wanted to know is, like, what is something that continues to motivate you in what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm really motivated to be a great communications professional, as well as a great mom and wife. I think I now have managed a team of 5, and it's really important to me that everyone on my team is really fulfilled by the job that they have, and they have clear paths to where they want to take their careers. So it motivates me to do good work and provide inspiring paths for them to continue their career. And I try to approach all my work with a lot of integrity and honesty, and just hard work to set an example for my daughter. And I think it keeps me motivated to think that she's watching me every day and seeing how I conduct myself when I work from home and when I interact with my friends. Like, I just want to be a good example, so that keeps me motivated as well.
Great. So I actually have a couple of questions from Twitter.
Oh, cool.
So Mary Rose asks, what is an example of one of the stories you've pitched or put forward?
Sure. So probably one of the best ones that I've worked on was a couple years ago. I worked with the New York Times to do a story on Old Navy featuring our old president, and it was his first interview with the media ever. So we really wanted to emphasize his approach to collaboration and teamwork. So we coordinated for him to speak with the reporter, as well as our head of design and our chief marketing officer. So it painted a really cohesive picture of where the brand was going and what his leadership style was and how they planned to take the brand to the next level. So that was a really exciting one that ran with photos and on the front page of the business section. And that was a good one.
Another one, what has been the favorite part of your career, and what has kind of been one of the bigger challenges that you've faced?
Yeah. Well, let's see. In terms of my favorite parts of my career, there's lots of favorite parts. I love being able to write every day. I have a really, really great team. So I really thrive on the teamwork and the things that I learn from my team every day. And then having the benefit and the privilege of working in fashion is super fun, and like to sit front row at Fashion Week with our CEO, and really exciting. Challenges, when you work in communications, crises come up often, and sometimes the story can get out of your control. So it's a challenge to make sure that you're working with reporters to make sure that they understand the story and giving them the background around, what happened, and, either apologize or set the record straight if there's any inaccuracies, and that can be challenging.
And one last question. If you could give the seniors here some advice, what would kind of be that? What would it be?
Yeah. Let's see. Do your homework. Pay attention to this last year in school and enjoy every minute of it. But also think about doing some internships. That's one thing I did not do my senior year, and that might be like a no-brainer nowadays. But when resumes cross my desk for people looking to get into PR or communications, those who come to the table with either an interest or experience in working at an internship at a communications firm or agency, that's a plus. Or if you really want to get into retail or fashion, like work in the store and learn the nuts and bolts of like what it is to be an associate and what the values are of the brands that you love, and then bring that to the table.
Great. I think that's about all the time we have. Thanks a lot, Liz, for getting a chance to kind of share your knowledge and your experiences in the fashion industry from here at St. Mary's. And And good luck in the new role.
Thank you so much.